Hello, hello. Thank you so much for being so patient. So welcome to your natal chart reading. Okay, the lighting looks good. All right, so let's get your chart popped up here. All right, so here, let's minimize this a little bit. So very interesting. Was been peering at this chart. I took like a week where I wasn't doing any readings. It's kind of like the full moon will have that effect on me, where I just kind of do the bare minimum. But then like right after it, I always feel more ready to go. So thank you for the patience. So right off the bat, first thing I always look at is, okay, what's the relationship between sun and moon, right? And you got sun in Leo, moon in Scorpio, which is a square, meaning that there's a tension between the sun and the moon, and then the ascendant is in Cancer, and you have Venus and Mars in Cancer too, and North Node. So, and also the moon is conjunct Neptune, which is very, very important. So, I would say this is a very difficult combo, just in the sense that, and I'll explain why. So, the sun in Leo so in astrology, the sun represents like the core essence of who we are, our identity, our solar self, right? And the moon represents kind of like the more feminine, unconscious part of ourselves that we need to kind of follow what our moon sign says in order to really feel calm and collected and secure and happy, and grounded and all these things, right? So the moon kind of runs the show, but the sun has huge implications as to our life purpose and kind of what we stand for, right? So it's almost like a yin yang. And when they're square, meaning that they're 90 degrees away from each other, it means that there's tension. They're at odds with each other. They have two very different goals. So moon in Scorpio, sun in Leo, and they're both fixed, right? So I think that when you have fixed sun and moon that square each other, it's very difficult because basically what's being asked is a compromise, right? A balancing. I mean, you could say the balancing oppositions is more balancing, but it's like two very, very different energies. Think of it like a right triangle. And you have to figure out how to allow these two parts of you to really work and to really, I have the exact same thing. It's just mine is in Pisces and Sag, right? And I've had tons of clients who have this, and they all agree that it has to do with this this dilemma of like almost feeling like you have two selves. And it's like I literally have therapy. Like I had therapy today where I'm constantly talking about the Pisces me and the Sag/Leo me and how to make things work for both of them. So when it's fixed, though, and I'll get into the details about them. Fixed is a little bit more stubborn energy, right? It doesn't like change as much, so it makes it more difficult. And sometimes what happens is that you feed one of the sides, one of the parts, and not the other one, or you don't feed the other one enough. So it's about finding that compromise. So with the sun in Leo, obviously I don't go too far into sun signs, but I'm sure you've seen horoscope about Leo people, and just the fact that Leo is all about kind of the inner child and creativity, and it's a fire sign, so it's a fixed fire sign, so it's self-starting, passionate, courageous, bold. It likes to be, it likes to kind of I say Leos like to be the center of attention, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm a Leo rising, so it really, they like to shine, and in essence, and I'll show my face again. I don't think it's showing my face. So in essence, the Leo part of you is more about that part of you that's more extroverted, that part of you that's more gregarious, that's more less, more, yeah, like less about deep introspection like the Scorpio Moon would be, and more about just kind of going out and having fun. And Leo, it's about the inner child, so it's very carefree, right? So Leo is a very carefree energy. They like to laugh, they like to make other people laugh, and they kind of just like go out in the world and just do stuff, and just leave their and have like a creative purpose, whatever that means, right? Also, Leo, not many people say this, it's very, I find Leo to be very sensitive. I feel like it's like a lot of some Leos, they might have like this big, what seems like ego, but like they can get their feelings hurt very easily. I remember I had a girlfriend a while ago who had like so much Leo energy, and she was probably the most sensitive girl I've ever dated, and she cried a lot. And then I'm just like, wow, Leo. She had like everything in Leo, but basically, so that's one part, and it's in the second house. So that's, about resources and about, well, we can get into that a little bit. Let's be more basic, more zoomed out. So then there's a Scorpio part. So that's part one, right? You imagine it. It's like a shining light. The Scorpio Moon. So if you saw my rankings I did recently, where I talked about, I'm going to read it. My opinion of the most difficult, not the worst, I don't use worst, but most difficult moon signs. And I said Scorpio is 2, and I said that they can just feel too deep and intensely, also often a fear of vulnerability and trusting others. And this is really a placement that must be mastered, or there can be dark consequences such as emotional manipulation. That's only one part of it. But basically, when your moon is in Scorpio, it's difficult because there's this extreme intensity of your emotions that can be very, very, like, it can make someone very, very moody and easily triggered. And they can, on the low, so people who have Scorpio moons, especially men growing up in this world, they can potentially, there can be like big issues of wanting to have lots of power, and they can be really, not just the men, but it can be very vindictive. So like really like wanting revenge, and they can be involved in like the ego power struggles, right? They're not the people you want to mess with. But also it can just create, a very intense emotional nature that's swinging up and down, that can be very unpredictable. Now, you don't have any really difficult aspects to your moon, so that, thank God, right? You do have the conjunction with Neptune, and Neptune conjunct moon in Scorpio is going to add, well, first of all, it's going to make you very, very intuitive, and very, very, and a very good thing about Scorpio moon, any water moon, is it's very compassionate, very intuitive, very tapped into kind of the collective energy and the energy of people around them. The Neptune here is going to give you potential for like psychic abilities, honestly. It is within 3 degrees, but still, yeah. Like when I say psychic, I don't mean like telling the future or anything like that. I mean just kind of knowing things, and you're like, how the fuck did I know that? Which can help in anything you do, whether it's business, whatever. But it creates a real mystic, an emotional need for kind of the esoteric and mysticism. And Scorpio moon, they're not, so this is kind of the square, the tension. They're not surface level. They're deep. It makes you a very deep person. And with the Neptune there, it's to make you very interested in spirituality and in growing yourself spiritually. And the Leo side is not very deep. I mean, not to say that Leos are surface, but compared to Scorpio, like Scorpio is a very serious sign, right? It's about death, rebirth, transformation. So when you have it in your moon, that process tends to happen on the unconscious level. So what does that look like? Well, usually when someone's young, it can be very, very, very intense experiences that lead one to like this forced almost maturity, right? Think like a toxic relationship that leads to a power struggle, leads to a horrible situation, or they get really, really triggered by something that leads to like an explosive kind of And you do have lots of like your Mars and Cancer and stuff. So you're not going to have, you don't have other parts of your chart that really, yeah, you don't have this like eruptiveness in your chart. So I'd imagine that there could be that tendency to hold things in, like maybe like repress anger potentially. But Scorpio, like Scorpio moons, they never forget. Like when someone wrongs them, even like in a slight way, like they just don't forget. And so that's why it's a difficult moon placement, because they feel everything so intensely and so deeply, and there can also be this like darkness to it to them, right? And sometimes it shows up as a need for drama, a need for intensity, and a need for emotional intensity and stimulation. And sometimes they're born at a time where their mother experienced some kind of crisis. There could have been like a traumatic birth. And sometimes they experience their mother as being kind of possessive and also very intense. So you see how these two are at odds. One wants to go deep within like the more taboo hidden realms of life and also sexuality. There's so much to Scorpio, right? It's so deep. It's like the witch kind of mystic energy, alchemist, all that. Scorpio people, they see that there's like, especially with the Neptune there, they see that there's more to life than what's presented. They want to go undercover and in the undergrounds and stuff like that. And the fact that Neptune's there, though, that Neptune can kind of create like a fog around you understanding your emotions. So I would imagine that you probably, find things like therapy or this, very helpful. Anything that can get you more in touch with your unconscious, because the Neptune can have that effect where, yeah, it adds tons of compassion. And I also want to add about the compassion, yeah, but it also can kind of, yeah, make one not like understand themselves emotionally very well. But I want to add this thing that's very, very important, is that you need to spend time alone, because you have a lot of water in your chart, and specifically Neptune conjunct your moon in Scorpio makes it so you're a sponge for energy. You're an empath. I'm sure you know this. I'm sure it's no surprise. In essence, what can happen when you're too much surrounded by other people, is that you can start to take on some of their energies and think that those people's energies are your own. So specifically, dark energies can be very troubling, and you can think, oh shit, this is me, and then you go and spend time alone. It's also really important for you to recharge your energy alone. So this is another way that the Leo and Scorpio side are at odds, right? This is the split, as we call in psychology. Because one part is not like that, right? Leo is very extroverted. So figure out a way, and I think you got a follow up, did you not? Let me just check. Yeah, you did. So make sure you take notes. I mean, it's important for the follow up for you to take notes, because I don't remember anything. Like after I do the reading, I pretty much just like, I don't know, it's crazy. I literally just don't remember anything I say. So it's really helpful to take notes, and for you, because in the follow-up, you're basically just going to bring up the things that you found that you wanted to get more clarity on and stuff like that. So it's important, take notes, because I won't remember all the deep insights I say. I mean, some will come back to me, but yeah. Yeah, so spending time alone and recharging your batteries is super important. Meditation, your dream life, will be experienced very intensely, and you'll have an emotional need to kind of manifest your dream and imagination, your aspirations, your ideals into your life in some type of way, and have your emotional need meet your imagination, your emotional nature, like have some link to your imagination. Now, also the fact that it's in the fifth house, that means that fifth house is about creativity. It's about fun, right? So it's actually the house of Leo. So to me, this is indicating that there needs to be, or there should be, some type of creative outlet, and maybe it takes on a scorpionic kind of dark nature. I don't know. But you would really, really benefit from whatever the creative outlet is, taking a creative risk on yourself. And yeah, Leo is also about creativity, right? So very, very important stuff. And okay, so after that, let's see. After that, you know, we look and we see you don't have that many big aspects in your chart. I mean, Moon opposite Jupiter, you have to watch out for like overdoing things, having like this this thought that you this kind of unconscious thought, like being a little bit like not taking too many risks and kind of being more risk savvy with your risks. Because Moon opposite Jupiter, it can kind of create an energy where one doesn't forgets to look before they jump, and they can get in trouble for that. But because you do have a Moon in Scorpio, which is very analytical, it likes to probe deep, like it can be very obsessive too. That's another thing. It can be very obsessive. And just some other things about Scorpio Moon, they particularly need, and you do have Jupiter in the 11th house, which is very interesting, because most Scorpio Moons, they don't really make friends that easily. They tend to kind of like be very selective, which is potentially the case for you. But you have Jupiter in the 11th house, which gives you tons of popularity and a lot of ease and luck, you know, like karmic luck, you know, good fortune, I guess, when it comes to friends and groups of people. But with that said, you know, Scorpio Moons, they need to have people around them. I need to turn this fan on. It's getting hot. They need to have people around them that they can express all their emotions, like no matter how dark it is. So I'm about to make a new post for my Instagram about like the love need of each moon sign, right? And for Scorpio, it would definitely be something along the lines of to be able to have someone who takes them, who doesn't judge them, and who allows them to, you know, someone who's rock solid, right? Who they can rely on to be this. Scorpio Moon loves loyalty. They need loyalty because they're very loyal, right? They're loyal to the core. So they need someone that they can depend on. That's not going to be like, you know, nothing against like Aquarius or Gemini, right? These air signs. But those are two signs that, and you can't take anything I'm saying, like if you do have a partner who's an Aquarius or Gemini, I'm sure that, you know, their moon or other parts of their chart say otherwise or say other things. But, you know, these are just examples of energies that are difficult for someone that has a Scorpio moon, because they can be so wishy-washy, here one day, gone the next. There's a certain level, especially with your Cancer placements, which we'll get into next, of needing that closeness and that tenderness and that touch and that almost that real emotional bond with. So then the next question is, okay, how is the ascendant, right? The ascendant rules our personality, kind of what we project to the world. How is that covered, right? And you have all these other planets, Venus and Mars and the North Node, which is a planet, but it's very important, all in Cancer in the first house. So I'll share the chart again. I never have any idea how much like my client knows about astrology, but I always assume a little bit. But I don't know if this chart means anything to you. But basically, this is the part that rules Scorpio, or it's ruled by Cancer. So the Cancer part of you is really, really in line with the Scorpio part, because they're both water signs. So now we kind of have some 2v1 with the water versus the fire. So you see how this is kind of similar to my chart, but in my chart, it's the fire that dominates this poor little Pisces sun that's alone with Mercury. So in this case, you know, the ascendant in Cancer, it makes one come off very, very nurturing. It can be very, very good to have a Cancer moon for charm, and for just making people feel comfortable around you, because Cancer is the sign of the mother, and it's a very sensitive sign. So you're very, very sensitive to. It's a very sweet rising sign. I don't know if you've been described as sweet, but I imagine you probably have been, because you do have Venus rising, which is actually very good for attraction too. and for having like an aura that people feel like this person's very, very warm. Like I imagine like, so this is what's so interesting about your chart is that you exude all this warmth, right? But then there's a Scorpio moon that I'm not saying it's dark and there aren't any difficult aspects to it, but it's a very intense moon sign. But like in the context of your chart, this is why it's so important to get like professional chart readings done with the whole chart, not just one piece. I think your Scorpio moon is in the perfect environment for you to go through these amazing these like very big karmic transformations. It's like there's not other parts of your chart that are super difficult to where you know what I mean? To like there's not other parts of your chart that I think prevent the Scorpio moon from functioning at the highest level. And the Cancer part definitely helps that process. And in fact, it's highly linked to your destiny. I'll go back to sharing my face. It's highly linked to your destiny because the destiny is the North Node. And basically, you have these energies, right? So Ascendant in Scorpio, or excuse me, in Cancer, they will tend to kind of approach life in a more like less. It's not that they're not assertive, like they can definitely, it's a cardinal sign, so they can definitely, like some of the most successful people are Cancers, but they'd rather watch, like kind of take their time in a new environment, and they like to play the role of the nurturer. But because it is cardinal, there is a certain level of self-assertion and initiative. It's just like not necessarily the biggest risk taker. Like they like to feel comfortable, right, before pursuing their purpose. And they really care, like, so caring for others is a huge purpose for them. And you're very, very family oriented, I would imagine, with all this Cancer energy. Like you have a massive attachment to your family. And if you're a father, I would imagine that you would be an amazing nurturer. And this is actually linked to your in fifth house moon. The fifth house also rules children. So that would indicate that there's like this deep emotional attachment. And even like you could say even like a psychological connection. Like what am I saying? Basically, there's a huge, and Mars rules your fifth house, which is over here in Cancer. So it's like there's a big connection to children if you have them, if not to family of origin, and just like if there's no family, like friends, pets, whatever, right? Whoever you care about, humanity even, and it makes someone very hospitable. Also, it kind of contributes to the moodiness. It's also very moody. So people that have Cancer rising, it's very important for you to follow the moon cycles, especially with the moon in Scorpio, because you will definitely be affected by, for example, the eclipse we just had, right? It makes the chart ruled by your moon, which is the moon Scorpio, which gives extra strength to that moon and extra importance to the moon. And so very, very strong feelings that can go from like the most pure feelings of compassion to the most intense feelings of hatred potentially, right? But like really caring for other people and bringing that sense of warmth and emotional warmth, right? And then it does kind of play well with the Leo, because the Leo is also a very warm energy. It's like maybe people meet you and they're very comfortable around you, because Leo is square. Okay, your sun's square Jupiter. Interesting. So you have a T-square with interesting with the moon, sun, and Jupiter, which shoots out at 21 on close to your vertex in the 8th house. Basically, I'll translate that in a second. But wow, so Jupiter, so the biggest thing for you, and is there any nodal stuff? No. So the biggest thing for you, so the sun square Jupiter, I have this too. That I always explain to people, I wrote about it in my book. It's like the energy, it's such a risk-taking energy. It's very good for leadership, but like when young, like I lost a bunch of money, like I talk about in my book. I'm not gonna talk about it now. It's embarrassing, but I lost a bunch of money because I was being careless and I was thinking like this investment will for sure work out, you know, and it didn't, right? Like that's an example. Like thinking, like walking into the casino and thinking, oh, I'm automatically gonna fucking win, you know? And it can, I always say over expansion. So being overly expansive is something that one needs to watch out for, but it gets a lot easier and you're born. So yeah, you definitely probably, it's probably something you went through that when it becomes later in life and you start to integrate the energies, they go from being your enemies to your allies, to your greatest strengths even, right? Because it's just like the athlete, right? Who has like, let's say his speed isn't that good, or it's kind of a bad example. Let's say his biceps aren't that strong. Well, and then there's the other guy who naturally has strong biceps, so who just gets complacent, doesn't work on it. But then there's a guy who works and works and works, and then before he knows it, he's better than the guy who has it naturally. That's what these energies are in the natal chart. So with this, there's definitely a potential for overdoing things, right? For overdoing things, and for as I said before, forgetting to look before you leap. So it's important to know that about yourself and make whatever changes need to be made to prevent mistakes and to prevent whatever can come. But the way it's a beautiful thing is that it makes someone think that everything is possible, which I don't know what you do for a living, if you're in business or if you're a psychologist, I have no idea anything about you. But that energy, as I said, I have this square, but you have the square and the opposition. You have your moon and your sun connected to Jupiter, but I'm very Jupiterian because I have Sagittarius moon and Pisces sun. So basically I get it, right? And it creates an energy, and it sounds crazy to people. And I believe that you probably can feel this, even though you're a Scorpio moon, which can make you a little bit more realistic, a little bit more naturally cynical, especially when it comes to meeting new people. That's kind of the Scorpio shit deal. But it gives this belief that anything is possible, which, like, when I say anything, I mean anything. Any level of success, any level. So it can create someone who, what's the saying where it's like, aim for the stars and you hit whatever, the moon. I forget what the saying is, but basically I butcher every saying. I know you're from Australia, so it's like an American saying, but it's like basically like you aim for like 1,000, and even if you get to like 600, that's still fucking 600, So it's aiming high. But the way that this T-square works is that it's like an arrow. I'll present again. It's like an arrow, right? So it's the sun, moon, and Jupiter. And the sun, the self, right? The ego gets shot out in a bow and arrow and gets a 21 Aquarius. And it's right by your vertex. So that is how the T-square is resolved. Now, what does that mean? Well, what is 8th house Aquarius about? Well, Aquarius, 8th house where your vertex is, which is like literally speaking about your doorway to higher awareness, is through service, through humanitarianism, through connecting with different groups, from shifting away from the me to the we, right? And the 8th house is death, rebirth, transformation. It's about combining, right? It could be with other people's resources in some type of way, right? That's the 8th house energy. Taboos, the esoteric. It's very spiritual. It's like the gates to the unknown. So basically, also Aquarius has to do with friends. So having your 8th house ruled by Aquarius with Uranus down here in the 3rd, potentially it has something to do with writing. Because I think writing or communicating, you have for sure a very distinct and ultra unique way of communicating. And I don't know if it's writing, I don't know if it's just talking or whatever it is. This is like the chart of like a writer potentially, who writes about stuff that's more, or speaks about stuff or whatever, makes content about things that it's more underground, that's more less known, that the things that you're truly interested in, right? The eighth house stuff. But when it relates to that T-square, that's more psychological. I think bare and simple, it's about getting out of the ego and getting into helping others and the collective and getting in tune with the collective. And once you're doing that, once you're being of service, karmically it enables the energies that might be difficult with respect to the Jupiter aspecting the sun and the moon. It eases those energies. That's like the magical effect that being of service has. But like, it's not just being of service, it's also just like the more deep you go into yourself, the more layers you peel off that onion of you, the more you go into the esoteric and psychology, and you learn about it's completely related to your Scorpio moon. The more you eighth house it up, right? Allow, like, kind of let go, surrender, allow parts of yourself that are no longer parts of yourself, people, situations, things, all that stuff that are no longer serving you. When you allow those to just fall off, allow them to go, that's the growth. And that's what ultimately like can really, really be great. And with Vertex there, yeah, it's doubling down. Show my face again. It's doubling down that message, but like, you know, the Vertex is also very much about relationships. So, but like, you know, just from the eighth house, like it can really say that the doorway to higher awareness is through really deep and often intense experiences, right? Like matters of life and death, sexual experiences, stuff like that. And what else? Yeah, it's very, very, so like, kind of getting in touch with like your natural psychological skills, right? And natural mystical skills, because you have both of those with the Neptune conjunct the moon. So moving on, like, or going back actually to the rising Cancer. So you understand how that complements, because it's water, it complements your moon, and it actually probably sweetens out your moon a little bit, because you're very sensitive, and your ascendant is how you look and how you act. So you act more similar to your Scorpio moon self. So people aren't so surprised when they see that depth, because you portray externally the same depth. But the Cancer is a lot sweeter and a lot more calm, a lot less intense than the Scorpio moon. Scorpio moons often need some kind of like help, like whether they're here to transform. It's like a very karmic moon placement where you're really, really here to transform. And I think the mix of Leo and Scorpio is like learning when it's time to be serious and learning when it's time to have fun, and not being too far on one end, right? Because if you're too far into the Scorpio world, the Leo part's gonna be like, hey, like, let's not take life so fucking seriously, you know? But if you're too far in the Leo part, partying a lot, I don't know, just like kind of just, you know, having fun. Inner child, like Leo is literally the inner child. The Scorpio part's gonna be like, hey, like, you know, this isn't what I signed up for. Like, I wanna develop, I wanna grow spiritually, I wanna grow emotionally, I wanna understand the world better on a deeper level, I wanna understand myself better on a deeper level. So that can only be done, that can't be done in kind of surface level situations. So yeah, Venus. Okay, so talking about love life stuff. You know, Venus and Mars conjunct already. I have that too. Mine's in Aquarius. It creates basically, in terms of love, it's very sure that, first of all, it creates a lot of like libido, I guess you could say. It is a very sexual placement. And the fact that they're in the same, you know, you can think of Mars, and Mars is like the assertiveness function within us, right? And Venus is like the loving function. So the fact that they're in the same house, in the same sign, right next to each other, means that it's kind of like another yin yang. The sun and moon is one of the yin yangs, and then the Venus and Mars is another one. And yeah, it just gives one like a very strong desire for love and affection. And it tends to make one very relationship oriented, right? With a lot of like sex drive and a big like need for relationships, which sometimes that need can be. I was actually going to add this, like it can be a little bit codependent at times, but yeah, it makes one very relationship oriented. And sometimes it can create a level of intensity that's too much for the partner to cope with, which can definitely be the case with Scorpio Moon. So that's why it's very important for you, like for partnership, to have the right partner. And just so you know, like I do those kinds of, that's a completely different reading if you are married or something like that, or curious or whatever. Like I do what's called a composite reading, or a compatibility reading. It's a completely different reading. That one is a lot more work for me, but I love doing them. So if you're ever interested in that, let me know. But yeah, basically, like it does kind of make it easier for you to find new partners if like something doesn't work out. Creates like lots of attractiveness, kind of this magnetism. I have it too. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, so it makes like it just doesn't make it that difficult typically, and it makes them like to flirt, and yeah, it makes one attractive. It's in your first house. Come on, give yourself a pat on the head, right? It's Cancer energy, and it's very good for popularity. And it comes, when we think about the career, it's very good for the career, especially since it's in Cancer, which is like Cancer is very calm and very soothing. So, and in career, like even if you were like a big businessman or a lawyer or something or whatever, the Scorpio Moon is going to be very good, like, and this Cancer energy, but the Scorpio Moon is going to give you the ability to have that like fucking just see through people. You can see through bullshit, see through. It gives like a cynicism that can be very helpful in the business world, which is like so cutthroat, So it's like it's not good to just be like super like. But then again, you do have Neptune there, so it might it can also kind of confound that with idealism. Also with this one, it's very good for like goal-directed energy. It gives a strong work ethic, creative passion. So it can make you, yeah, really like it can lead to lots of great achievements. And in the first house, the house of Aries, it makes you, even though you're Cancer rising, which isn't known to be assertive, it makes you assertive, and you're a Leo. And it makes you just kind of want to go and do things. Mars in the first house wants to just go and be independent and have new and be very adventurous, right? And according to one of the most famous astrologers, Robert Hand, he said, I'm reading this here, let me pull it up. So that how you relate to the opposite sex depends greatly on your relationships with the parent of the opposite sex when young, with this conjunction. So, which is very interesting. So definitely like something to talk about in the follow-up, but yeah. Yeah, and I can definitely verify that being true in my life and life of other clients that have had this placement. So next, so okay, of course, so the Venus archetype in love is, it's very, very much about nurturing. So your chart, it's very, very dependent on how you were nurtured growing up, because there's going to be lots of that carrying over into adult relationships, as I just kind of said. And Venus in Cancer, it's just the love language of touch, of emotional closeness, of hugs, of I love yous. And of course, I said that like the family being very important. And it's about how strong of an emotional bond one can create. So I imagine like in a marriage, with all your energy, you would have to be like extremely, extremely emotionally close no, and even though you like Scorpio Moon can be quite secretive too, you see I'm just like adding in little things about the Scorpio Moon. You know, the Cancer wants to be very, very close and have that deep emotional understanding of everything. And the Scorpio Moon can also have a fear of vulnerability, but with the right people, that, you know, they'll really treasure that, and they'll be very, very loyal to the person they're able to really open up with and feel safe with. Also, you know, Venus in Cancer gives like an emotional need for financial stability. That's, you know, stability and security. So, and yeah, so Mars, and let's see here, and then it's trine Saturn. So that's very, very, very good for being able to have long-term relationships that last. Venus and Saturn together creates relationships that can last into old age, that stand the test of time. So, yeah. And Mars in Cancer, it's in its, you know, fall position, but someone was telling me how like lots of like, it's not known as like a very strong Mars sign, but you have it in the first house, which is very good, which gives you this strong desire for self-expression and independence. So someone was telling me how like a lot of tennis players, I haven't verified this, but a lot of pro tennis players have Mars in Cancer. Usually it's like the Mars and the fire signs that are like known to be like the most assertive and going after like what they want right away. But yeah, so Mars in Cancer, they really like to, it's this energy of someone who just like will fight for what they believe in, right? Whatever they have an emotional bond to, whether it's family, causes, people, whoever, they will fight for that. Very, very protective of the family, very protective. And when they're hurt, and this is more energy with the love life stuff and relationships, they'll have a tendency to crawl into their shell. Like Cancer is known, it's like the crab, that when it's so sensitive that when it makes itself vulnerable and it gets hurt, it goes into its shell, and it's very hard once a Cancer has been cheated, like that, not necessarily just cheated on, but deceived, for them to trust again and be vulnerable. So that's kind of like also why the early nurturing is so important to the adult relationships. So, yeah, and I definitely think that there's a huge creative purpose in your chart, and that you can really draw inspiration because Mars is connecting to your Uranus in an exact sextile, and to your Pluto and trining your Neptune. So, and let's see. Okay. So what I make of that is that on one end, you move in a way that's kind of unconventional, meaning that you're not just going to do things like there's an adventurous streak to you, and there's a real desire to find things out on your own. You don't want to just take people's like the traditional approach. Like you want to dive deep into things, and it can make you, you know, quite unconventional in how you approach life and how you approach different situations and relationships. And then Mars and Pluto together, that is a super strong aspect that is great for leadership, and that gives you this real ability that when you decide on something, you really can like find this like almost, I always think of it as like this ball of intense energy to go towards whatever your real interest is or passion, right? So like, let's say you're really into astrology, for example, like you might be the kind of person that'd be like, okay, I'm gonna get 1,000 books, I'm gonna read all of them, I'm gonna join this group, I'm gonna get lessons, all this stuff, just like going, it's very good leadership. And it's also really, really good for physical activity and sports. And yeah, it's very positive to have like that like to create a spiritual and a physical outlet, because the Neptune trine the Mars is speaking to that as well. And yeah, kind of the coming together of intuition, imagination, and action. I spoke about that earlier, and it's shown once again here how you can take your imagination, your imaginary world, maybe the world you see in dreams and in your meditations, and put that into your physical world, right? But yeah, family, a huge theme here. So, and And also, Venus has aspect to Uranus sextile. To me, that is the kind of energy that's like you're not gonna necessarily, like, even though you do have that Cancer energy, you're still gonna want to have a relationship that can give you freedom, because you won't want to lose your sense of identity within a relationship. So you'll and it's not a bad, it's a sextile, so it's not like where it's like an extreme where it's like so much that it makes you have this like push and pull of like wanting to be with someone and then wanting freedom. And I have that. It sucks with all my Aquarius, Venus, and Mars. But for you, it's not like that. It's just like it makes you more open to unconventional, new age kind of types of relationships. What can I think of? Like, for example, let's say that like sleeping in different rooms or something. If that helped, like you be open-minded, and also to like even like doing things differently than the tradition, which is very just open-minded when it comes to that. Also, it's very good for money, and for kind of like money making schemes, thinking of them. And so what else can I say? Okay, it's good for now. So then the North Node, right? So then we have the North Node. So the North Node astrology is like from a past life to this life, like in reincarnation perspective. We have different lifetimes. We have different strengths and different weaknesses. The North Node points to not necessarily a weakness, but it's like, I always call it the mountain. I always like this mountain never climbed in past lives that you haven't climbed, where you're really trying to get in this life, right? So in Cancer, on 0 degrees Cancer, in the first house in my whole sign system, you're really in this life, and to no surprise, you see how astrology kind of comes full circle. You're trying to get deeper within your emotional self. You're trying to come to some deep emotional revelations and transformations, and you're learning to be a nurturer of others and a nurturer of yourself. And what happens, and also it speaks to independence and a need for doing your own thing at times, and not being and watching out for a potential codependent past life tendency with the South Node on the descendant. Now, also, this could have to do with potentially having been a different gender in a recent past life, and you might feel a lot of like the more advanced souls have like kind of a 50-50 split in terms of like male and female incarnations. Other one, like people are kind of favor one. So maybe, I could see that being the case for you. And so there's also a tendency with South Node in Capricorn to, in the 7th house, it's like take too much from relationships, be too much, in the relationship, not enough independent, like self-exploration, individualization, and figure out who you are, which is the core essence of Leo, which is authentic self-expression. But then the Capricorn part is saying that there's been too much of an emphasis on the outer world, on the career, on success, on the material world, right? And not enough like on the inner. Too much on the outer, not enough on the inner, right? So that's what it's saying. That in this life, it's not to say that you can't be very, very successful at whatever field you're in or whatever career, but that you're meant to really, really learn lessons. And I would imagine it has to do with parenting. If you're not a parent, parenting yourself. It can definitely be that too. And that has to do with compromise, right? So there's like a quest, a karmic quest to overcome inner pride and to tolerate your own failures. You have a tendency to make life harder than it needs to be. This is based on past lives where you have to work hard for people's respect. You need to learn humility and to express your emotions honestly so that you can nurture others with your wealth of wisdom. And also, it's a quest for identity. You need to leave behind past life habits of submerging yourself in others and find a balance between self-assertion and giving to others. So, makes total sense. And yeah, so Cancer, that sign is like where you're trying to become very in touch with your emotions, and it has to do with vulnerability too. It's conjunct your Venus and your Mars, so it's like love life is very, very important for you in this life, but finding the right balance of like of still keeping your independence within the relationships. So then the third house. Okay, so the Virgo ruled third house, which has Mercury in it, so the ruler's in the house, making it strong. Conjunct Pluto and Uranus. Wow. Mercury is how you think, it's how you speak. And you have it in Virgo, so that's in dignity, which means it's where it works the best with Gemini. So it's going to give you lots of intelligence, a quick wit, someone who's very like a discriminating mind, very critical and analytical. But there can be a real obsession with detailed knowledge, right? Which can sometimes be to one's detriment when they're too obsessed, but it's really beneficial for doing any kind of research, working in any kind of company, doing any kind of school, anything that involves the brain. And it makes someone really like to be precise with their communication. And it's in the third house, which means that you excel in all forms of communication. And third house Mercury people are always intelligent, and they're quick learners. They're talkative. They like to study a variety. Like you may not even be into astrology. Maybe like you're a scientist, but you have this big, you want to see like, who knows, you want to like really, really study different ways of seeing life. So then the most important part is that it's conjunct Pluto and Uranus, but not as much. But the conjunction of Pluto and Mercury is giving you so much power in your speech. Like this is like what amazing speakers have, right? Conviction, leadership ability. You're really meant in this life to find your voice with Pluto in the third house and to make a difference to the world around you with that. But not just your voice, it's also about having this very probing mind. So you would probably be the most amazing researcher. Like when you want to learn about something, you can just go in. So then you add Uranus to that, and it's also part of it, not as tight. That is, about having a very unique and what's the word? Not just unique, unconventional mind that doesn't just take things at face value. Someone who wants to really think for themselves. And you have a mind that wants to get to the bottom of things, and that goes right with your Scorpio Moon, instead of blindly believing. Now, I see the potential for writing. I don't know if that's something you do. Uranus in the third house makes one a quick and original thinker that likes to study unusual subjects. And, there's also something with the siblings here. I don't know if you have any siblings, but if you do, there could be some kind of like unusual relationship. Maybe perhaps like you have multiple siblings. I don't know. There could be some unusual like relationship in some way. But with Pluto there can definitely be like a power. I have it there too. Oh no, actually mine's in the fourth house in my new system. But there can be like a power struggle with the siblings, but like there's a big need for you because in past lives you may have like taken what like the media or whatever, like whoever it was, that was giving information, you may have taken it too much at face value. In this life, you have to really like go out and find it for yourself. And then Mercury there, third house, like I said before, there's like the potential for really liking to communicate, bounce ideas off of siblings. So sometimes I've seen charts like this, and they'll have like three siblings, and one represents each planet. Like one, there's like a power struggle. One, it's like kind of like it's like a half brother, half sibling, or there's like this weird, very unusual energy. And the other one, they're just like speaking into a lot, or it's the same one, or there's different elements. It's tough. We'll talk about that in the follow-up if you have siblings. And fourth house ruled by Venus in the first house in Cancer. I mean, that would make me feel like there's some level of nurturing in your childhood, but I forgot to say this at the start. Sun square Moon tends to reveal a divorce of the parents, or at least if it's not a divorce, tension between them. And if you had to write down in, let's say, one paragraph, the overall main message you receive from your father and the overall main message you receive from your mother, they would be at odds with each other, right? Different people. Like I had this, and my parents divorced when I was like 7 or 8 or something. I can't remember. So that is there too. But just because the parents divorced doesn't mean, or like, weren't happy together or different. I mean, I've seen charts that have this square where the parents stay together, but they were just super different people, right? A little bit more about the relationship stuff. You have Juno conjunct your moon in Scorpio. So that's basically saying that your ideal partner is going to really, like, once again, be someone that you can share all your deepest emotions and feelings and views, everything, no matter what, no repression, right? Because Scorpio moon sometimes feel like they have to edit themselves. They're like, I'm too dark for this world, It really, obviously, it really depends on like the feedback they get when they're younger, but yeah, Juno and Scorpio, you'll really appreciate a loyal person, and someone also who helps push you creatively, right? And who also, like, because it's in the 5th house, Leo, so someone who helps you on that quest of balancing out the Leo and the Scorpio. Interesting how that's shown in the chart. Okay, so Black Moon Lilith in the 6th house, ooh, right on my moon. So I know that energy well. 22, mine's 21 Sag, 22 Sag. Basically, like 6th house. I mean, I guess it can create something where someone has trouble organizing their daily life, and their routine. Maybe they feel like they're giving too many duties. Maybe there's some difficulty that happens at work. And you might feel like other people are screwing up your kind of daily routine or your ability to be of service, but really it's like about needing to be more organized. But more importantly, in Sagittarius, it speaks to the whole thing with the Jupiter, like a tendency to throw yourself into new ventures without having the self-restraint and like just going too fast, right? That can be in relationships and in business and life, whatever, right? Gambling energy. Also, Black Moon and Sag, it's like, and Black Moon, this isn't energy you have, by the way. I need to preface that. This is only a potential. This is just you, kind of your shadow side, like you at your worst, like you at your lowest. This energy can come out. So in Sag, it can be also very dogmatic, right? My way or the highway, not enabling like another way of thinking to enter. So that's very important too. So yeah, not like, and then also like trying to push your views on like what is truth and what's reality. 1 second. Too much, like trying to push them so much, like pushing your views of like what you feel reality is, and like trying to push it on other people, and almost like forcing them, like it's like when I first started learning astrology, I was like, so like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like I want everyone that I love to also understand astrology, and you learn that people need to learn things at their own time. Okay, moving on. Vertex and Aquarius, you're going to come off, you might come off more detached than you are when you're in relationships, because I think of the Vertex as like a second ascendant, the one that comes out in relationships, but also there's going to be lots of intensity, lots of emotional intensity, and that is going to be a feature of your relationships, and I've already talked about that one. Saturn in the 9th house. So interestingly, this is a place where a lot of astrologers have, I found out recently. And basically it can have several functions. It can make one kind of feel restricted in exploring the meaning of life for the first 30 years. But then after that, there can be this real serious investigation into like the high philosophical, like the high realms, like what is truth? And you can have this really organized energy, which can, that's why like a lot of astrologers have this. But like, I think a lot of astrologers like probably start studying astrology later in life, right? I mean, a lot of people, maybe these days it's a little bit different. I don't know, but yeah, so Saturn in the ninth house, like the Saturn turns at 30 years old, around 30 years old. After that, the restriction is pushed away, and they're like, all right, I want to learn, you know, and it can give a really structured ability to put everything in order to find this universal truth. Chiron is also there. It's in Pisces. So, and also Saturn in Pisces makes one a very compassionate and intuitive worker. But it can also make one quite anxious and fearful. And yeah, usually Saturn in Pisces is talking about lots of really strong karma to be worked through in this lifetime. So, okay, now ninth house, Chiron, and it's retrograde, which I'm not going to go into now. We can talk about that, in the follow-up. But okay, Chiron in Pisces. So basically, Chiron in ninth is basically feeling rejected for your beliefs when young, usually. And it kind of pushes you to really, really, like kind of with the Saturn one, like to really challenge like the belief systems around you and to really like go deep within or around and look and try to find different things in the world, trying on different philosophies, whether it's traveling to different cultures or reading different books, being with different teachers. It's really about having wounds around your belief system. And these wounds later force a change of overall philosophy, which can make you become a teacher of higher knowledge to people around you. And in Pisces, so this is an interesting one, and that can make someone have difficulty in gaining their own sense of individuality. Now, it's very strong for being a healer and for being able to pick up on other people's pain, but there's this real need. Let's say you're like a healer of some sort, a psychologist, something like that. There's this big need to learn to detach, because it can be difficult to, like, you feel like to be so empathetic, but then like to not take on the other people's pain. Like you hear the people who are like, oh yeah, I know I could be a good psychologist, or I know I could do this, but like I just can't separate myself from it. Like I just like feel it too much, and then it just destroys me. So that's kind of the lesson with that, right? So yeah, like you can be like an intuitive type of healer, and you might have some kind of like spiritual wounds, and there can be some deep and personal grief that is, like studying things like astrology, things that help you understand what universal and ultimate truth is the healing, and then you are able to heal other people potentially. So yeah, then part of fortune in Aries in 10th house, that's just very, very good for career. When you're flowing with this like self-propelled, forward-moving energy, that's when you're at your best, experiencing joy. And also when you're using your willpower to achieve different goals. That's like, and goals related to your career. And it's also like, achieving your personal worldly goals brings you lots of joy, right? But there is a need to overcome inhibitions from childhood and strive for maturity in relation to like the career. So midheaven is 11th house with Jupiter there. So midheaven in 11th house, very interesting in the whole sign system. Basically, midheaven has to do, and it's in Taurus, so it's ruled by Venus, which is, I don't know, like if I had to take a guess at your career, it's so hard to guess. But like real estate could be something. Who knows? Because Taurus, it's ruled by Venus, which is in Cancer, the first house. But like something that like I would imagine that like financially, it'd be important for you to work in groups. That's the 11th house, midheaven. Like working in groups is very important. And with Taurus, I have midheaven in Taurus also. And basically like requiring like routine and stability in the career. And a lot of people choose a reliable and determined path. And sometimes it's a quite traditional career, but I don't have this at all. But I need to see like what asteroid and fixed stars you have, if there's any conjunct it. Let's see here. But yeah, while I'm looking for this, I might have to open up a website for that. Yeah, so Jupiter in the 11th house gives you tons of luck. So I would imagine that that there's very ambitious with your like worldly, like what you're doing on a worldly level. Jupiter will give you luck, and it will also give you luck. I said before, like with popularity and meeting the right people at the right time. Like I have a friend who has this placement who moves a lot, and every time he moves, he meets new friends, and it's just crazy, right? And it's like I've seen the opposite with like Saturn there, where it's just someone staying somewhere for 10 years and they just can't find friends. So one second, I'm gonna search something. I want to say one other thing about Chiron. So Chiron, your healing path is through the work experience and through finding a meaningful goal in life. Healing may well be your life work. You have a remarkable, wait, no, I'm wrong. No, that's not the right, okay, this is the right one. Your initiatory, delete that. Your initiatory crisis has to do with connecting and resonating with the higher self in this lifetime. You have a natural interest in philosophy and spirituality. You may feel driven to discover ultimate truths and convey them to others. You naturally embody spirituality, and though you convey great wisdom to others and may even be considered an adept, you long intensely for complete ensoulment, full conscious expression of your soul essence. As you follow this quest, you may experience pronounced imbalances. You'll probably follow a number of teachings and disciplines and may be tempted to believe that the answers you have found are the best for everyone, which I already talked about before. There may be a tendency to fanaticism. And then in Pisces, a little bit more about that. Your initiatory path is about connecting with a universal oneness. Surrender to the divine. That's what I was missing. You are highly attuned to subtle energies, and you may have a very different definition of reality, totally true with the Neptune conjunct your moon, than is common. As you dance to the beat of the cosmic drummer, your sensitivity makes you vulnerable to astral influences, and you will feel a need to recognize the nature of these energies. That's such a good point, that you'll be so like, you'll understand and you'll feel these energies so much that you'll want to know more about them. You're sending, okay. You need to be aware to not dwell in negative thought patterns, as these astral entities can attach themselves to you and be difficult to release yourself from, which I said before. You have to really watch out for that. So it's very important for you to not being around negative people or environments. If this occurs, you might need assistance in clearing them so that you may express the highest potential of this placement, which is ecstatic mysticism and oneness with all of existence. It would be well for you to learn techniques of astral projection. You are prone to have spontaneous experiences of transcendence and carry a vision of earth and cosmic harmony. Chiron here is a great tool. You're able to feel the heart of the universe. Your challenge is to have patience and tolerance for those who do not have your insight and who have ruled by fear and limitation, while not allowing yourself to buy into a fear-based view of life. Opening your heart will release your great gifts. Okay, I wanted to add that one there because I knew I was missing something. But yeah, I'm not, maybe in the follow-up you can remind me, but like I have a feeling I'm not finding this this site that shows all the fixed stars, but I have a feeling that you have some fixed star. One sec. On your midheaven. That's what I do. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I found it. So it is 8. Oh, 6. Hamal. You have Hamal within a degree. Okay, how did I not see that? So I can talk about that in a sec, but let's just see what it shows. Yes, it says it's right on there. And Skedir. So Hamal is a very important one. I'm still learning a lot about fixed stars, but let's see. Mars and Saturn. Ooh. Equivalent to an unfortunate Mars. Okay. This is actually difficult. Star. So it's very Martian. Can make one headstrong and aggressive when it comes to like career, but very capable leaders. Like qualities of the Ram of Aries. So there can be violence, but let's see what it says with the midheaven. Doesn't say shit. But like, let me see if I can find something. Midheaven. There's so little information on these fixtures. And I have this book coming, but it's taking forever. Let's see if I can find anything. Okay, I found. Sometimes you can only find it in these forums. Okay. Okay. So it says planets or angles conjunct Hamal are infused with strength of will and independence. This is from Bernadette Brady, a very famous astrologer writer. So are infused with strength of will and independence. You could act or think in a way that separates you from others. So you could be good for leadership. Yeah. So it's like, I think this is probably a good place for it because you want to have that assertiveness in the midheaven, the area of career. Hamal could also result in an ability to be focused and direct in the area of life on midheaven, governed by this conjunction. Because Hamal is on your midheaven, reflective of your career, you need to have a sense of autonomy and freedom of thought and expression. It gives you the inclination to introduce new ideas, philosophies, and or actions to the public. So you could be a thought leader. Interesting. I need to order that book right this second. I wish Amazon, I know Amazon's messed up and all that, but like the best thing is that if I was in America, I could just order this book in 2 days, it'd be at my doorstep. Here, it's way more complicated. It's so fucking annoying. But I still need to, maybe I can find it in Romania. But anyways, that's for, oh, I found it. Holy shit. It's a lot of money. Okay, this is for another time. So anyways, yeah, with Jupiter there, that's just like I said before, you know, that is the best energy for popularity and also for wealth. It's a very prominent energy for wealth. So you know, just know that. And yeah, basically that's kind of the overall synopsis of things. 12th house ruled by Gemini and Mercury. So that kind of makes me think that like everything with your writing, with your communicating, with all that, there can be like a deep, like you might want to try like journaling or like automatic writing where you like meditate and then you just like start writing and you try to just engage only your right brain and not allow like the left brain to come in, even though you have a Virgo Mercury, just like really training your to connect your intuition with your throat chakra, with your communication. So yeah, that's pretty much it. How did I do time-wise? Wow, it's 1:15. I'm so happy. I've been doing like 2-hour readings and it's just so way too long. And I'm trying to get them closer to an hour because I'm getting a lot of them. And, you know, 2 hours is a lot. But, you know, sometimes your chart, honestly, like there's not that many like difficult aspects that I would have in another charts, spent like a lot of time talking about. But I want to see one thing. Let's just see. I always go through this. Oh, and I want to say a few other things before we leave. Okay, so you just have Saturn. Okay. So just a few other things, and I know we'll have the follow-up to catch up or to talk. But so this is the first reading, right? The birth chart. It's like the book of your life, right? This never changes. I would have told you this the same way if you were 10 or if you're 30, 50, 60, 70, whatever. It's all based on free will. So you are not your chart. That's the mantra. You can have two people born at the exact same moment with completely different lives because of free will. So aside from that, what I encourage all my clients, and a good amount of them do this, is to get the current astrology reading next. So this one represents the book of your life, like hand of cards you were dealt. The current astrology one, that's a live reading. So we would just meet after we do the follow-up and stuff. We would meet live on Zoom, but I'm just telling you this because I'm kind of booked. So if you would want to do it, it'd be smart to book it soon, because my schedule's been filling up really fast. But basically, that one is a live Zoom. We find a time that would work in daytime that work for both of us, and we talk about how the current astrological influences are impacting you. So it's almost like this current chapter. That's what that reading is, right? And it's way different than this one. There's a counseling element. I'm an astrological. I have 2 master's degrees in psychology too, so I do astrological counseling as well. That's like what I'm really focusing on a lot also at the moment. So I kind of take on, that's also something I do. I just like to let people know all that I do, because it's not just natal charts. But that kind of comes out in that reading, the current astrology reading. So if you're interested, you can book that directly on my website, and then we'll set a time to meet, which will probably be like next week before I leave for a little trip. So yeah, what else to say? It's been a pleasure. And I hope you take some good notes, and we have some good talking points for the follow-up, and we'll have to figure that out. I'm guessing that I don't know if you are still living in Australia, but I have clients from all over the world. So if you are in Australia, it's not a problem. I can always make things work. So just have to figure it out. So yeah, just give me a message. I don't know if you found me on Instagram. If you did, that's probably the easiest way to message me, but you can also email me, and we'll set up the time. So, and if you don't have me on Instagram, it's at Jesse Innocent Astro, my name and then Astro. So cool. All right. Thank you so much. And I will talk to you later. Bye-bye. Ciao.